Evening, everyone. This is Mrs. Bloom, and I am reading Artemis Fowl by Eoin Colfer. We are in chapter 6, which is a very long chapter. Yesterday, we had Commander Root and the Lep coming up and surrounding Artemis Fowl's manor house because Artemis had taken Holly Short captive. And Commander Root is sort of figuring out that Artemis Fowl is no normal 12-year-old master villain. So we're going to pick up with one of the Lep teams meeting Butler. Butler could have taken them from the parapet, one at a time with the ivory hunter's rifle, but that wasn't the plan. This was all about making an impression, sending a message. It was standard procedure with any police force in the world to send in the cannon fodder first before opening negotiations. It was almost expected that they would meet with resistance, and Butler was happy to oblige. He peeked out through the letterbox, and oh, happy coincidence, there was a pair of googled eyes peeking right back at him. It was just too fortuitous to pass up. "Bedtime," said Butler, heaving the door with a mighty shoulder. The fairy flew several feet before alighting in the shrubbery. Juliet would be devastated. She loved rhododendrons. One down, several to go. Butler picked up the peaked hood on his field jacket, stepping onto the porch. If they were spread out like a squadron of action men, if not for the array of very proficient-looking weapons hanging from each belt, it would have been almost comical. Sliding his finger casually under the trigger guard, Butler strode into their midst. The bulky one at 2 o'clock was giving orders. You could tell from the heads angled his way. The leader gave a command, and the squad switched to close-quarter weapons. It made sense. They'd only cut themselves to pieces with firearms. Time for action. "Evening, gentlemen," Butler said. He couldn't help it, and it was worth it for that one moment of consternation. Then his gun was up and blazing. Captain Kelp was the first casualty, a titanium-tipped dart puncturing the neck of his suit. He went down sluggishly as though the air had turned to water. 2 more of the squad were dropped before they had any idea what was going on. It must be quite traumatic, thought Butler dispassionately, to lose an advantage that you've held for centuries. By now the remains of Retrieval 1 had their buzz batons fired up and raised, but they made the mistake of hanging back, waiting for a command that was not forthcoming. This gave Butler an opportunity to take the fight to them, as if he needed another advantage. Even so, for a second the manservant hesitated. These beings were so small, like children. Then Grubb clipped him on the elbow with his buzz baton, and 1,000 volts spread across Butler's chest. All sympathy for the little people vanished instantly. Butler grabbed the offending baton, swinging weapon and bearer like a set of bolas. Grubb squealed as he was released, his newfound momentum carrying him directly into 3 of his comrades. Butler continued the swinging motion, driving punishing punches into the chests of 2 more fairies. Another clambered onto his back, stinging him repeatedly with a baton. Butler fell on him. Something cracked, and the stinging stopped. Suddenly there was a barrel under his chin. One of the Retrieval had managed to get his weapon cocked. "Freeze, mud boy," droned a helmet-filtered voice. It was a serious-looking gun. Liquid coolant bubbled along its length. "Just give me a reason." Butler rolled his eyes. Different race, same macho cliches. He slapped the fairy open-handed. To the little man it must have been like the sky falling on his head. "That reason enough for you?" Butler scrambled to his feet. Fairy bodies were scattered around him in various stages of shock and unconsciousness. Scared, definitely. Dead, probably not. Mission accomplished. One little guy was faking, though. You could tell by the way his tiny knees knocked together. Butler picked him up by his neck, finger and thumb easily meeting around the neck. "Name?" Corporal Kelp." "Well, Corporal, you tell your commander that the next time I see armed forces coming in here, they'll be picked off by sniper fire. No darts either. Armor-piercing bullets." Yes, sir. Sniper fire. Got it. Seems fair." "Good. You are, however, permitted to remove your injured." "Most generous of you. But if I see so much as the twinkle of a weapon on any of the medics, I might be tempted to detonate a few of the mines I have planted in the grounds." Grubb swallowed, his pallor increasing behind the visor. "Unarmed medics. Crystal clear." Sorry? Butler set the fairy down, brushing his tunic with massive finger. Now, final thing, listening? Furious nods. I want a negotiator. Someone who can make decisions, not some no non-ranker who has to run off back to base every demand. Understood? Fine. That is, I'm sure it will be fine. Unfortunately, I am one of those non-rankers, so, you see, I can't actually guarantee everything will be fine. Butler was solely tempted to drop-kick this little fellow back to his camp. Very well, I understand. Just shut up. Grubb almost agreed, then clamped his mouth shut and nodded. Good. Now, before you go, collect all weapons and helmets and make a little pile right there. Grubb took a deep breath. Ah, well, may as well go out a hero. I can't do that. Oh, really? And why not? Grubb drew himself up to his full height. A LEP officer never relinquishes his weapon. Butler nodded. Fair enough. Thought I'd ask. Off you go, then. Hardly able to believe his luck, Grubb scurried back toward the command tower. He was the last fairy standing. Trouble was snoring in the gravel, but he, Grubb Kelp, had faced down the mud monster. Wait till Mommy heard this. Holly sat on the edge of her bed, fingers curled round the metal base. She lifted slowly, taking the weight on her arms. The strain threatened to pop her elbows from her sockets. She held it for a second, and then slammed it to the frame, to the concrete. A satisfying cloud of dust splinters swirled around her knees. Good, she grunted. Holly eyed the camera. Doubtless they were watching her. No time to waste. She flexed her fingers, repeating the maneuver again and again until the steel base left deep welts in her finger joints. With each impact, more and more splinters popped from the fresh floor. After several moments, the cell door burst open and Juliet fell into the room. What are you doing? She panted. Trying to knock the house down? I'm hungry, shouted Holly, and I'm fed up with all this waving at that stupid camera. Don't you feed your prisoners around here? I want food. Juliet's fingers curled into a fist. Artemis had warned her to be civil, but there was a limit. No need to get your whatever in a twist. So, what do fairies eat? Got any dolphin? Holly asked sarcastically. Juliet shuddered. No, I don't, you beast. Fruit, then, or vegetables. Make sure they're washed. I don't want any of your chemical poisons in my blood. Ha ha, what a riot you are. Don't worry. All our produce is grown naturally. Juliet paused on her way to the door. Don't you go forgetting the rules. No trying to escape the house, and there's no need to break the furniture either. Don't make me demonstrate my full Nelson. As soon as Juliet's footsteps had faded, Holly began smashing the bed into the concrete. That was the thing about fairy bonds. The instructions had to be given eye to eye, and they had to be very precise. Just saying there was no need to do a thing wasn't specifically forbidding an elf to do it. And another thing, Holly had no intention of escaping from the house. That wasn't to say she didn't want to get out of her cell. Artemis had added yet another monitor to the bank. This one was linked to the camera Angeline Fowl's attic room. He spared a moment to check on his mother. Sometimes it bothered him having a camera in her room. It seemed almost like spying, but it was for her own good. There was always the danger that she could hurt herself. At the moment she was sleeping peacefully, having swallowed the sleeping pill Juliet had left on the tray. All part of the plan, a vital part. Butler entered the control room. He was clutching a fistful of fairy hardware and rubbing his neck. Tricky little blighters. Artemis looked up from the monitor bank. Any problems? Nothing major. These little batons pack quite a punch, How's our prisoner? Fine. Juliet is getting her something to eat. I'm afraid Captain Short is going a bit stir-crazy. On the screen, Holly was smashing her cot into the concrete. It's understandable, noted the manservant. Imagine her frustration. It's not as if she can tunnel her way out. Artemis smiled. No. The entire estate is built on a bed of limestone. Even a dwarf couldn't tunnel his way out or in. Wrong, as it happened. Dead wrong. A landmark moment for Artemis Fowl. The LEP had procedures for emergencies like this one. Admittedly, these did not include the retrieval squad getting hammered by a lone enemy. Still, that just made the next step all the more urgent, especially with the faintest of orange tinges creeping into the sky. Are we good to go? Roared Root into his mic as though it wasn't whisper-sensitive. good to go, thought Foley, busy wiring the last dish on the watchtower. These military types and their catchphrases. Good to go, lock and load. I don't know, but I've been told. So insecure. Aloud he said, "No need to shout, Commander. These headsets could pick up a spider scratching in Madagascar." "And is there a spider scratching in Madagascar?" "Well, I don't know. They can't, really." "Well, stop changing the subject, Foley, and answer the question." The centaur scowled. The commander took everything so literally. He plugged the dish's modem lead into his laptop. "Okay, we're good to go." "About time, too. Right, flip the switch." For the third time in as many moments, Foley gritted his horsey teeth. He was indeed the stereotypical unappreciated genius. Flick the switch, if you don't mind. Root didn't have the cranial capacity to appreciate what he was trying to do here. Stopping time wasn't just a matter of pressing the on button. There were a series of delicate procedures that had to be performed with utmost precision. Otherwise, the stop zone could end up just as much ash and radioactive slop. While it was true that ferries had been stopping time for millennia, these days, with satellite communication and the internet, humans were liable to notice if a zone just dropped out of time for a couple of hours. There was an age when you could throw a blanket stoppage over a whole country, and the mud people would simply think the gods were angry, but not anymore. Nowadays, the humans had instruments for measuring anything, so if there was any time stopping to be done, it had better be fine-tuned and precise. In the old days, 5 elfin warlocks would form a pentagram around the target and spread a magic shield over it, temporarily stopping time inside the enchanted enclosure. This was fine as far as it went, provided the warlocks didn't have to use the bathroom. Many a siege was lost because an elf had one glass of wine too many. Warlocks tire quickly, too, and their arms get sore. On a good day, you get maybe an hour and a half, which was hardly worth the trouble in the first place. It was Foley's idea to mechanize the whole procedure. He had the warlocks do their thing into lithium batteries, and then set up a network of receiver dishes around the designated area. Sound simple? Well, it wasn't. But there were definite advantages. For one thing, there was no more power surges. Batteries didn't try to show off to each other. You could calculate exactly how many power cells were needed, and sieges could be extended up 8 hours. As it happened, the Fowl estate was the perfect location for a time stop. Isolated with a definite boundary. It even had elevated towers for the dishes, for heaven's sake. It was almost as if Artemis Fowl wanted it to be time-stopped. Foley's finger hesitated over the button. Could it be possible? After all, the human youth had been one step ahead throughout the whole affair. "Commander,
are we online yet?"
"Not exactly. There's something—" Root's reaction nearly blew out the woofers on Foley's earpiece.
"No, Foley, there isn't something. None of your bright ideas, thank you very much. Captain Short is in danger, so push the button before I climb that tower and push it with your face."
"Touchy," muttered Foley, and pushed the button. Lieutenant Cudgeon checked his munometer. "You have 8 hours."
"I know how much time I've got," growled Root. "And stop following me. Don't you have work to do?"
"Actually, now that you mention it, I have a bio-bomb to arm." Root rounded on him.
"Don't annoy me, Lieutenant.
Having you make comments at every turn is not improving my concentration.
Just do whatever it is you feel you have to do, but be prepared to back it up at a tribunal. If this one goes wrong, heads are going to roll."
"Indeed," muttered Cudgeon under his breath, "but mine is not going to be one of them." Root checked the sky. A shimmering azure field had descended over the Fowl estate. Good. They were in limbo. Outside the walls, life continued, at an exaggerated pace. But if anyone were to somehow gain access to the manor in spite of the fortified walls and high gate, they would find it deserted, all occupants trapped in the past. So for the next 8 hours it would be twilight on the Fowl estate. After that, Root could not guarantee Holly's safety. Given the gravity of the situation, it was more than likely that Cudgeon would go ahead to bio-bomb the whole place. Root had seen a blue rinse before. Nothing living escaped. Not even the rats. And we're going to stop today, and that was our third part of Chapter 6. Tomorrow, we shall actually be finishing Chapter 6. Have a good evening.